Hello, how are you? It's chilly today, but not as cold as you can see. I've still got layers on, but not quite as many as before. Today I am going to do a post about how you submit your monthly claim for universal credit. Now, you need to remember that I come at this from a certain perspective. So I am not a standard universal credit claimant. I used to be on working tax credits. I was self-employed. I still am self-employed. And I kept my claim open for working tax credits until I was put onto the managed migration, which is where you will get an email telling you that your working tax credits are going to come to an end in 3 months. And then once that 3 months elapses, you'll be offered the opportunity to apply it for universal credit under the managed migration system. And this is not the normal universal credit application process, because when you get the managed migration, you get almost like a protected claim. So you will get what they call a startup year. So you will apply for universal credit, you'll get this protected startup year, which means that you are much more likely to be accepted. And that can be regardless of your income, although you do need to prove that you are gainfully self-employed. They won't just give you money because you sit around all day doing nothing. You have to prove that as a self-employed person, you are trying your best to earn from your business, to diversify. It might be that you have side hustles. It might be that you get a second job that's part-time, which may also be self-employed, but could also be a PAYE job. And you also get dispensations for savings. So normally you can only have, I think it's £6,000 of savings to apply for universal credit. If you are on the managed migration, you can have up to £16,000, and I don't know if it's the same in all cases, but sometimes if you have over £16,000, that over £16,000 will be disregarded. But of course it depends on how much you have in savings. So just because you have more than £6,000, or maybe you have more than £16,000, don't think that you can't apply, because within that protected year they will look at the different circumstances and base your claim on that. So that's my background. So my working tax credit claim came to an end last July, and then I went through the process of claiming under the startup year, under the managed migration. And I had to submit all my savings information so that they could assess that. And then you have your first meeting and you talk them through everything that you're doing to make money, all the different ways you make money, all your side hustles, all your business. You prove that you're trying to run your business, so give them the details of your website, your social media pages, other ways that you find work, and all the other little things that you do to make money. So that's my background. So if you are claiming just as a regular universal credit claimant, you may have a very different process. I don't know how that works. I've not been part of it. This is just my own personal experience. But if you are self-employed and you have been on working tax credits and you've had your managed migration letter and you're going through the process, it's worth sticking with it. I think it's worth sticking with it. A lot of people will say they can't be bothered with the paperwork. I thought it was worth it. And it depends on how you manage your business. So I have been self-employed for 12 years and I manage all of my finances through spreadsheets. So when I started to do this, I just added a new spreadsheet tab and I just make sure that I'm putting the right money in for the month. Now, when you claim universal credit, your month to month, so your 30-day period, will be entirely dependent on when you were accepted. So mine runs from the 21st of the month to the 20th. So that means on the 20th of every month, I will get an email reminding me that I now need to fill out my universal credit claim for that month. And for me, this isn't a problem. It's a simple process. It's like doing a mini self-assessment in April, but every month. But if you manage your paperwork properly, if you are keeping good records, it isn't difficult. It takes me about 4 minutes to do this every month because I already have a spreadsheet laid out. I have the columns laid out, so they're already adding up what I need it to add up, and then I can just put the numbers in, and I know I don't need to go back and recheck everything, look for paperwork. You just have to get organised. It isn't difficult, and if you are already self-employed, if you are already doing self-assessments, you should be good at this. You should already be able to do this. So the first thing that you will get every month is the email to remind you that you now need to do your claim for that month, and this is what the email looks like. And all the way through this, I am going to do this process live because today is the day that I've had my email, and I'm going to take you through the process that I do, and I'm going to screenshot the various pages as I go so you can see what I'm seeing, and this will likely be what you see as you do it. So you've had your email, and now what you need to do is go into your Universal Credit account online. And when you go in, it'll be the government website, Universal Credit. Sign into your Universal Credit account. It'll ask you, when you set up your Universal Credit account, it'll ask you to set up a username and a password. Now I keep mine remembered on my computer because it's a private computer. So I can just do sign in, and in I go. Now, if I haven't been in for 7 days, it'll want to send a code to your mobile, and then you can ask it to remember your computer again for 7 days. So it's asked. I haven't been in for 7 days, so it sent me a code, which I'm now going to get off my messages. There is my code. I'm going to put my code in. Hit the button that says remember me on this device for 1 week, and then if you need to go in again, which you probably will, it'll remember you for 1 week, so you won't have to do that next time, and then click continue. And then there you are on your first page, which I will screenshot for you now, and you can see that page. And it will automatically come up with this because it's that time of the month when you need to do your expenses. So, at the top, underneath home, it'll say report your income and expenses. Click on that link. And then there'll be a page that starts out looking like this. And it'll ask you to tell them how much money you made from your self-employment between the period, whatever the month is for you. And you will get, it'll remind you what sort of things you need. So how much your expenses were, if you paid any national insurance. Now, as a self-employed person, I pay my national insurance once a year at the end of, or by the end of January. I haven't paid yet this month. I'll do it by the end of January, so my national insurance amount will go in on next month's claim. If you paid into a pension, you'll include that. I don't have one, so, or at the moment I don't have one, so I won't be filling out that bit. If you have that, then you need to include that. And it'll tell you when you need to do your reporting by, and it'll give you a week to get that in. And then the system will calculate how much you will get from Universal Credit. So, scroll down the page, and it'll give you information about how to contact us, the credit helpline, if you can't speak to anyone on a phone, and right at the bottom it'll have next. So press the next button, and then you'll get a page that looks like this. And it'll ask you, did you receive any money from self-employment during the period, la-di-da-di-da. I'm going to click yes, because I did. And then another line will open up underneath, and it will ask you how much did you receive. And for the income section, it just asks for a straightforward how much did you make for the month. It doesn't want you to itemize things, so that makes doing the maths a little bit more easy. So I'm just going to look at my spreadsheet, have a look at everything I've earned, and for me this includes the part-time cleaning work that I have. It includes any interest I've made on my savings. It includes money that I have made from my actual business, which I'm still running at the moment. I also earn from taking surveys and doing market research, so I include all of that, and you've got to remember it must fall within the 2 dates for your month. I also include any income from YouTube, which will really start next month for me, and I have some sales on Vinted which I class as business because somebody donated me lots of clothes and I'm claiming that as a business because it's not my stuff that I'm selling. I've decided to throw that in as well. So put in my total, just give me a moment and I will do that. And once you have put the amount in, click next. The next page it will ask you is, did you pay any national insurance? I haven't this month, so I'm going to click no and click next. The next page it will ask you if you paid any tax. And it depends entirely how your business works. I mean, I do my self-assessment at the end of each year, so if I have tax to pay, it'll come in April. So I will click no to that one. The next page it will ask you if you paid into any pensions, and I have not. That'll be private pensions or whatever way you pay into your pension yourself. So we'll click no. The next page asks you about vehicle expenses. Did you use a vehicle for business? I do. I just use it for one of my cleaning jobs, and it's a very small amount. I think it works out at about 9 miles or something. So I'm going to click yes, click next. It'll ask you about your vehicle. Mine is a car. Click next, and it'll ask you for your business mileage. And again, if you are self-employed, you will be keeping tabs on this, because vehicle expenses, if they are part of your business, if your work involves driving around, that can amount up to quite an expense to claim back on. So you really should be claiming on that. So I'm just going to have a look at my spreadsheet because I put the mileage in there. You don't need to worry about the amounts, it's the physical miles that they're interested in. So I know that over the course of a month, my mileage only comes to 9.2 miles. So I will round that down to 9 miles. And my understanding at the moment is that you currently get 45 pence per mile. So I'll put the miles in, and it says there as well, we'll convert your miles into a cost. And when your payments come through, you will see that calculation, so you know what they've given you towards that. So hit next, and then the next thing it will ask you is other business expenses. Did you have any other business expenses from, and it'll give you your month. You don't include tax or national insurance, pension contributions or vehicle expenses. I do have some other expenses, and there is also a drop down where it'll explain what you're allowed to claim, so just do it based on that. Click next, and then it'll also give you some information, more information on what you can claim. And then as you scroll down, it'll say tell us about your business expenses. Now these are itemised. They are itemised per category. So it'll ask you, how much was your first expense for? My first expense is, one of the places that I sell on my business is Etsy. So I have fees for listing and selling on Etsy. So that comes to £5.89. So you put the numbers in and then you just give it a description. So I just call it Etsy fees. Underneath that, there'll be another button that says add expenses, and if you have more expenses you can add them, and it'll call it expense 2, and you'll go through the same process again. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet, expense 2. Normally I will pay for I also have a Shopify store, which is my my alternative to Etsy, and I've been paying for that monthly, and I've then decided that I want to pay for it for a year because there's quite a discount. It's £95 at the moment if I pay for the whole year in one go, which, bearing in mind that Shopify cost me £25 a month, means I'm getting quite a few months free. So I'm going to put that in as an expense, which came to £206.60. And I will just call that Shopify website. Add expenses again, expense 3, and I will just go through this process. So for things like, one of my other expenses is my mobile phone. I don't have a separate mobile phone for business. There's no point for me because I dip between phones so often. So what I do, I just split the monthly cost of my phone in half, and I dedicate half to business, half to personal, because it's impossible to track. Now I don't have a contract. I bought my phone outright. I have a plan, an unlimited plan with Smarty, which costs me £18.75 a month, and I allocate half of that to business. So I'm just going to put that in now. Add expenses again, expense number 4. And my last expense is I bought a new printer cartridge through eBay. And I'm just going to put eBay printer cartridge. It's self-explanatory. So that is all of my expenses for the month within that period. And because I have made sure that whenever those expenses have gone out, they are on the correct column for my spreadsheet, I automatically know how much to put in for this particular month. So I've got to the end, and then so that's all my expenses in. That's 4 different types of expenses for this month, and then I hit next. And then you will get a page that comes up which will ask you to check your answers. And it'll just be a summary of what you've already put in. It'll give you a summary of your money in, which you did as a summary anyway. It'll give you a list of all money out, including all the things that maybe didn't count. So national insurance 0, tax is 0, pension is 0, vehicle expense is 9 miles, and it's given me the calculation, which comes to £4.05, which is 9 miles for the entire month. And it'll include other expenses and it'll give you a full amount for all those expenses, and then list them individually so you can double check your numbers. And then underneath that it'll say balance, and it'll give you the balance of your money in minus your money out. So you double check your figures, make sure you've got it right. It'll ask you to declare that the information is correct, and you tick the box which says I agree that these details are correct, and then you hit submit. And then once it's submitted, you can click on home, and underneath that you will see it will then tell you when your next payment day is, which for me will be the 27th of January. And if you scroll down, you will find a section called payments, and there it will give you details of when to come back to look at it. So it'll take a few days to calculate. So it says that my statement will be ready on the 23rd of January, which is 3 days time. And then it'll tell me what I'm entitled to. And when you scroll down, it'll show you previous statements, so you can go back and relook at all your previous monthly submissions. You can see the amounts, and you can click on those, and it'll give you the details. And when you go in, it'll give you your information. It'll tell you what your payment is this month. It'll tell you when it's going to be paid, and then it'll give a breakdown of all the different ways that that your calculation is made. So it'll tell you what you're entitled to, and I'll do some screenshots here. It'll cover things like there'll be a standard allowance, which is the standard amount that you can get each month. It'll give you information about housing, because when you apply for UC, it'll ask you for things like how much your rent is each month. Now, I'm responsible for my rent. They're not paying my rent for me, and depending on where you live, there are local housing allowance rates, and mine is well below what they're prepared to pay, so I basically pay my own rent. I haven't claimed for it. There's also a line which tells you about transitional protection. It says you get this because of other benefits you were on before you moved to universal credit, and it'll explain what that protection amount is, and then it'll tell you how much your total entitlement is before deductions. Then the next section will tell you what we take off, and they will explain earnings from self-employment. They'll use that to work out what their deductions are, and it's a long list of stuff that I kind of half understand, but I think, well, they're going to take it off anyway, so I tend to not to worry about it too much. It says the amount we'll use to work out your credit, what your take-home pay for that period would be. Every £1 you earn in take-home pay reduces your universal credit by 55 pence. Then it'll talk to you about money savings and investments. It'll tell you how much money it's taking off your universal credit, depending on how much you have in savings which are being accounted for. And it will explain that information. So on mine it says, and I think this is probably standard, it says the first £6,000 of your money, savings and investments does not affect your payment. If you have over £6,000 up to £16,000, every £250 reduces your universal credit by £4.35. For any remaining amount that is not a complete 250, a further £4.35 will also be deducted. So you will have already declared that when you applied. It'll also talk about any debt or loan repayment. So when I migrated from working tax credits, because working tax credits are worked out over the period of a year, because my claim was stopped in July, they had overpaid me because it was based on the entire year. So they are basically taking back the money, and I had a letter explaining that I had been overpaid for working tax credits, and that they would take that money off my universal credit, and I've just let them take it. They took a chunk one month and then the remaining bit they'll take this month. So last month they took, I think it was £92.18, and this month they'll take whatever's left, which I think is about £10, and then that will be clear. I won't owe them anything back for that. I don't remember the details of the letter, but I think you could arrange to have different payment amounts if you thought that was going to mean that you were struggling. I just let it go. I was surprised I was even on universal credits. And then there'll be some information underneath that that'll tell you what your total deductions are, how much money you're going to get that month, and then you know before the payment date what you're going to get. But you need to give it a few days to calculate. I think it's 3 days from whenever you submit your claim, and then you'll get paid on whatever date it tells you, the 27th. My payments have always come through on time. I always do my my claim every month as soon as I see that email. I'll do it on the same day, get it out the way. It's got time to process, and I know exactly what I'm going to get in 3 days' time. And then I can add that to my spreadsheets, and I know how I can plan for my finances for the rest of the month. And there will be some other information about if your circumstances change, help and support, la-di-da-di-da. And that's it. Obviously it's taken me longer today because I've been talking you through it, but normally this would take me a matter of minutes to do. It is not complicated. It is not a difficult system. They've tried to paint it as complicated and laborious, and you have to do it every month, and you have to do your paperwork. If you're self-employed, you should be doing all of this anyway. It's just like doing a mini self-assessment every month. If you are organised, it will take you minutes to put this through. But the way it is portrayed has put a lot of people off bothering to migrate from working tax credits to universal credit. You would have had a protected year, you would have had help with money, and in fact the money I get from universal credit is better than working tax credits, and it's worth the effort. So they've managed to get rid of a lot of legitimate claimants by just painting the process as being awful. And if you don't accept the managed migration, the chances are you won't then get onto universal credit, because you will be treated as a brand new claimant. That transitional year is protected. It gives you a much better chance of being accepted onto universal credit, and I think it's worth it. I think it's every 3 months I go for a meeting with my work manager person, and we talk through how it's been getting on. They look at the numbers that I've submitted onto the system because they can see what I've done, and we chat about how things are doing. Are things getting better? I've only had one meeting so far. My meeting was back at the beginning of December. It was really positive. She was really impressed with how well I was doing, and we just chatted about possibilities, how I was intending to grow things in 2024, like get more cleaning work. I've now been monetized by YouTube, so that means that probably by the time I have my next meeting with her, which is the end of February, we'll start to see more money coming in. So that's another side hustle that I will be able to talk about. So that will increase my income. And that's just a case of just saying, well, this is what I'm doing, this is what's improved, this is what's got worse, we're in a cost of living crisis, isn't life tough, blah blah blah. And then you go away again, 3 months time, you have another go. So that's my experience of it. I realise this is not everyone's experience of universal credit. I realise that for many people it is a horrible system, that it doesn't work, that it's unhelpful, that it's humiliating. And if you are not able to navigate these systems, this is tough work. I absolutely appreciate that, but I can only report to you how it works for me, because that's the only experience I have. I'm not just going to make it up. This is how it works for me. This claim process will be the same if you are self-employed, managed migration. I don't know if it looks any different if you are a standard universal credit claimant, if you are not self-employed, if you are self-employed but are earning enough. I don't know what that situation will look like to you. If there's anything I've missed, please comment, because it's really difficult when you get used to doing a process. You take it for granted that it just happens, and you forget about the nuances that go with it. So if there's anything I've missed, anything I've not explained properly, please let me know in the comments and I'll answer it there. And it may be that I need to do a follow-up video at some point, and I will probably do a follow-up once I've had my calculations through to show you that information. But I think I've probably covered most of it here. You don't need to know my actual numbers, it's just the process and what that involves. So I hope that's been useful. This was requested by somebody, and I probably should have done it a while ago. But again, when you're used to just going through a process, you just assume it just happens. And if you're new to these systems, it can be very daunting. So I hope that's been helpful. I will get this up online ASAP, because I know there are lots of people currently on that migration process and waiting for their first start date, and I hope that this will be helpful to you in navigating the system. It's not a scary system. The self-reporting is so easy. If you are self-employed, if you are already managing your finances, if you are self-employed and you can't do this reporting, you need to look at how you are managing your business. You need to think about, how do you do your self-assessment at the end of the year? Do you wait till the last minute, panic and try and find all your receipts? It's very easy to manage throughout the year. Every month I have an envelope which I've got on my pin board, and every month, or every time I have an expense with a receipt, every time I have an invoice come through or I've sold something, I will just print it out, stick it in the envelope. At the end of every month, I don't need to look at it. I add it all to the spreadsheet as I go along, so that when I get to the end of the tax year in April, everything is laid out. The calculations are already there. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to double check anything. I don't need to worry about whether I've lost that bit of paper. It's already listed, and I put everything in there. Everything is covered. I have a business spreadsheet which is for my business, but now that I do all these other things and they are caught up in my self-employment income, I'm adding those as extra columns and extra rows so that I can see what goes into the final pot that becomes my self-assessment. And it's really a case of getting disciplined. I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've been running the current system that I now run, because I live on my own and have my own place, for 6 years. And over the 12 years, I have tweaked my spreadsheets and changed the way I do it. I have improved it. They've expanded as I've got more different jobs and things like that. It's about discipline. And if you're going to be self-employed, the very least that you can do is be disciplined about your paperwork, because it'll save you so much work in the long time. Don't put it off. Just get used to doing it as a daily, weekly thing. I mean, as soon as maybe I've been to the post office and sent a parcel because I've sold something on Etsy. As soon as I get back, it goes straight into the spreadsheet. The receipt goes straight onto the pin board in the envelope. It's done. Nothing else I need to do. And that's all I need to worry about. So it's worth your effort, and you just have to get disciplined. People can be so lazy about finances and about just keeping track of everything. It's not difficult. Just get used to it. Just make it a part of your life like everything else. It's easy. So I'm going to stop talking now. I think that's quite enough. I hope it's been really useful, and I will catch up with you soon with the results of this particular entry when that comes through. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, do please let me know. Thank you. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.